liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Can I get, we have no guests to the board tonight. Can I get an acceptance of the minutes?
So moved.
John moves to accept the minutes. A second, please.
Second.
Al, all those in favor?
Aye.
Reports. The building inspector couldn't be here. He's, as everybody knows, he's also the building inspector, and Fremont. He has a lot of stuff going on up there tonight, but he just gave me a little information. We have 14 new homes going up in the town of Delaware. 14 new homes, and 12 of them still under construction.
Wow.
We just got another one. So that's pretty good. This is in addition to all the decks and garages and all that stuff. You know, these are new houses. So I think that's pretty good for our little town.
Busy boy.
Yeah, he has been busy, and you know,
Yes, he
and he's
has.
doing a good job.
Yes, he is.
Very good job.
Tess, you're up.
That's fast. Okay, August receipts totaled $1,046 with $1,007.50 turned over to the supervisor, and of that, $745 was building fees. Last night I presented a tag grant application for codification to the UDC's Project Review Committee. Codification is a process where all of our local laws and ordinances are collected, organized, numbered, and placed in an easy-to-read, easy-to-access document. It'll be available online, it's word searchable, and I think Delaware and Fremont are the only two towns that aren't codified at this point in time. The company we'll be using they'll review our laws, they'll look for duplications, obsolete laws, things that need to be updated, and we have 5 types of districts located in the Delaware River Corridor alone, and they all have their different land use regulations. So this is going to be a useful tool for our planning and zoning boards, especially our code enforcement officer, and me, of course. So we won't hear until October whether we got the grant, but my fingers are crossed. It'll be a good thing. What else? Hunting licenses are on sale, and it seems like I've just been working on flood-related events and mitigation, and that's what I think I spent my whole last couple of months working on, so I don't have anything else to report.
Okay. I heard, just add a little something. I heard you did a great job with the presentation.
Thank you.
Little bird told me.
I was very nervous.
Big bird.
Yes, you did a good job.
No, I did. I heard that she did a great job. Superintendent of Highways is not here. Just a couple of things. I know he's, right now, if anybody has gone through Coletown, he's busy. They're cleaning the brooks, and we're using town trucks to get the material out of there. He'll be doing that certainly for the next, I would say, for the balance of the week anyway, at a minimum. So that's the only thing that I know that he's involved with right now. I want to talk a little bit about that a little later. Assessors.
Yes. We're pretty much finished with the data collection for all the residential properties. And in the next week or two, we'll start collecting data on commercial properties. Otherwise, nothing really to report.
But it looks like we're probably not going to get done.
I think we need
In
an extra.
2000.
Yeah, we're just finding too many discrepancies that have to be fixed, and sometimes it involves contacting the county to confirm the acreage amount and ownerships and things like that. And then
So our original plan of 2015 it probably will be 2016.
16, yes.
We'll get the reassessment done, okay. Kara's not here. She's got Grants Calacoons Park. Anybody have anything to report on the park?
No dogs at the farm market, I don't think.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem is hopefully behind us. UDC representative.
Yes, sir, we got several things to talk about besides the war. Here's the latest. You can see again, the red line, it's in sync with the long-term median, but it's still way above the long-term median. However, interestingly enough, it's 10 billion gallons less in storage than it was a year ago. So even when you look at this chart, you think, well, it's pretty well flowing and everything seems to be just right, but it's still a total of about 10 billion gallons lower than this time last year. Never sink on last Friday was at 82.9, whoops, wrong side here, at 70, never sink, 29%. It was 82 billion gallons, that was 29. It's at 82.9% storage. Pacton is at 83.3 and Cannonsville at 78.4, so which gives a total storage in the Delaware basin of 81.5. Tess just talked a little bit about the TAG grant that the town had applied for in codification, and I just wanted to let the people know that Tess has done such a wonderful job in providing the necessary paperwork and showing up and standing up for the town and doing what was necessary so that we could apply for this grant. There were 13 actual grants that were requested. Several towns had 2, and we ended up, after a long meeting of deciding we had about $30,000 to spend, so we spent just a little bit left of that, lower than that. The new meeting that's coming out on the first Thursday of October, that will be voted on the full board, and we will find out at that time how we did. However, I'm not allowed to tell you anything, but I can tell you I'm smiling. Okay, that's good enough for that. The next thing is something that the new superintendent of the Park Service has been working on. They've been doing some studies, and they're trying to find some outstanding values and views along the Delaware River, and they're looking for each town to identify those views to see if they can preserve them. We all want to have good views, we all want to have nice things around and all, but it ended up in a little duality of things. One idea was to, just zone it away from people. So if you own a nice chunk of land on the top of the river and it had a beautiful view, they're suggesting, some people are suggesting this, that they just zone it away from you so that you can't develop it. That's not a good thing. Then the other one was a willing buyer, willing seller. So that if you have somebody who owns a nice piece of property on that hill, on any of the mountains, either side of the river, and they're in conjunction with that, they want to keep it that way, put it in conservancy or something like that. That's fine. I think that is fine. But a lot of the towns were kind of scary and about the situation of just willy-nilly going down, picking a spot, here it is, okay, go zone it out, and we'll be all happy and go floating down the river. So that wasn't such a good thing. But let's see where it goes. We want to have something like that happen, but we want to have it done on a willing buyer, willing seller situation. There was one other thing, I can't think about it now. All right, that should be enough. Yeah.
Can you clarify something like that?
Yeah.
How far does that extend back from the river?
To the river corridor.
So it is the river corridor?
It's within the river corridor. They can't go beyond that.
Right.
Yeah.
But would it also, in addition to preserving those areas, let's say along Route 97 or scenic byway where you can no longer see the river, would it also include opening some of those view sheds up or not?
No, that would be a
That would be a
whole
different thing.
project altogether.
Okay.
This is, it may end up in doing that. This would be nice if we did it, but I don't necessarily think they were talking about view sheds from the road to the river as they
Just in
were
general.
from the guy in the canoe looking up on the hill.
Mhm.
They don't want to see a house, they don't want to see that type of thing. There are some beautiful spots, and they deserve a look at to see what could be done.
Mhm.
But it's just the procedure and how you get to that point is also, yeah, the other part is, and I don't know the results, I don't know what they've came about with, but there was a, what did they call it? A gas drilling tour by the Park Service itself. They went down to Bradford, they went all over, they had a 3-day thing that brought people from the National Park Service. This wasn't for the public, it was people from the National Park Service to find out what things are like. So this, of course, being a center of a lot of that, it was here. So they'd spend a lot of time on the river fishing and enjoying themselves. And then they had 2-day trips in which they went and viewed things and gathered data and information about compressor stations as well as drilling sites and so forth. But I don't know what the end result of that is yet. It hasn't been reported, and I don't know until we do, I'll report on it. Thank you.
Do you want to talk a little about, they're exploring, they're talking about, they got a consultant in there to explore the possibility of changing the document,
You mean
the river management plan?
Yeah, this,
Because I went to that, I went to a meeting myself about that.
this is a real touchy subject because of what went on years and years and years ago when it first came in. In case you're not familiar with this, I'll just briefly tell you that the Park Service at one time came up through this whole valley and said, this is a beautiful area. Yeah, like we didn't know that, right? Okay, but we're just gonna take everything from one mountaintop in New York to the other mountaintop in Pennsylvania. And that's it. And people didn't kinda like that. So there was basically a real war that went on for years. And the reason I think that the Park Service didn't proceed with that is because they didn't have the money to buy it out. It would be just a taking, and it would be just, it would go on forever and cost the government a lot of money in lawsuits. So that never happened, but what did happen was that eventually the towns and townships along the river sat down with the Park Service and worked things out. His dad was involved in that deeply for many years. And so were some of the old folks, the other old folks in the area and around. There's still a couple who were much younger then, but they're a lot older now, that are still kicking and around that could give you a lot more history about what went on in that situation. Well, they sat down and then said, look, why don't we do this? Let the Park Service come in and, quote, take care of the river, manage the river itself. We'll limit them to, I think it's 130 acres max that they could ever buy in the corridor. They haven't even approached anywhere near that. And the towns and the people who own the land will act as partners to help make sure that the river is being treated properly, but yet at the same time preserve private property rights. This is the first time that has ever gone on in the United States of America between the government and the people in a partnership. From that, they wrote what they call the River Management Plan. And that has been in effect since, what, 86 or something like that, 1985, 86, when they got that thing going. And that plan has been duplicated and revised and used in many areas throughout the United States where the government and the people are working together. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, that's a feather in the cap of all the work that went on in this river valley. And it was a heated thing. I mean, I'm surprised somebody wasn't shot. And so some of the Park Service people who even told me they were lucky they weren't shot. That's how heated that one was. But now it's 20 years or more, and they're talking about, you can't use the word revised because that's just going to spark the flame again and throw gasoline on the fire. They're going to try to find out what is outdated and revise those things or change those things, bring it up to date. So they have a consultant working on it. But even at the very first meeting, as Ed tell you, there was a lot of angst about this kind of a situation. And I just heard something, again, that if they try to revise the whole thing, it has to go to the government, not the National Park Service, to even have permission to do something like this. And it could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars if you wanted to revise the whole thing, and that's not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. If it needs to be changed and updated and brought up to date with many different things, then so be it, let's look at it. But if you want to do a big revision, you have to go and have all kinds of, there's a whole criteria that you have to meet. It's very expensive, time consuming, and it's just gonna just light the match and start the fire. Okay, thank you.
On that note, going along with Harold, we talked to some of the people down in Milford where the federal government
Oh,
did
yeah.
confiscate land. And that happened.
Well, this is why people were so upset here, because just prior to, I'll give you a little bit more history, just prior to this whole thing happening, the federal government come in towards the middle Delaware, from Milford down on 209, if you've traveled that road, and they decided they were going to build a dam on the river. Now that would be the antithesis of what they really want now. This is the only open flowing river east of the Mississippi that isn't dammed from Hancock down, not above it, from Hancock down. They were going to put a big dam down there, and they called it Tox Island.
Yep.
And what they ended up doing is confiscating by condemnation everybody's property along the river. They took houses, they took the land, they took everything. They made the people move, churches had to move, graves had to move, everything had to move so that they could come in and make this Tox Island thing work. Trouble is, it never worked because it never happened. And since these people were thrown out of their property and it never happened, when they came up here and started saying, well, we want to do this here, you can imagine what people were thinking about then. So that's what he's talking about, the Tox Island thing.
I had a
That was a
friend-
sad thing, because I know a lot of people down there who had some nice homes along the river and everything, and they just took them, kicked them right out, gave them virtually little for it, and then turned around and burned them down, and then did nothing.
It's all growing up in weeds today.
Yeah, it is. It's a park.
Does
They turned it into a national park because they didn't know what to do with it. But what is it there? What's there? You know, it's just a shame. And that's why people got so upset about what happened up here. But the relationship that we have here between the Park Service and these towns is good. It's guarded yet. We still guard it, but it's still very good. And you have to admit that when the Park Service come in, they did a lot of good things in cleaning up the water. And you got to realize at that time there was every little town here. Where did their sewage go?
Mm-hmm.
Where did the dump? Do you ever remember the Calicoon dump? Where did that go? Oh boy, we got a lot of high water. It's gone now. Narrowsburg got it all. Right? So that's where it's at. Thank you. Okay, supervisor's report. Just some things that we're working on. We're right in the middle of a lot of the flood mitigation projects. You may have seen some advertising in the local newspaper about getting permits. We've been issued some permits. We're still waiting for one, as a matter of fact. But we're in the brook. The town is using their trucks to haul some of the debris away in places where they're cleaning the brook. In conjunction with that, you may have read the newspaper about the award that the governor, I don't know if you saw this, I'm sure some of you have, $2.8 million to Sullivan County.
Yeah.
It was a welcome announcement. I'm not sure how it's gonna work. We all have a lot of questions about that. My assumption is it'll probably somehow go through the county, and there'll be strings attached, obviously, as there should be. But we haven't heard any of the specifics. We're trying to find that stuff out now. Hopefully we'll be able to do some of the things that we wanted to do, and mostly from a mitigation perspective at this point. In addition to that, right now, I'm kind of very busy working on the budget. We're in the middle of contract negotiations with the town highway department as well. So that's how I've been spending my days. We've been pretty busy. I have nothing else to report. Any old business? That's not on the agenda. New business? Okay, can I get a motion to accept the abstract, pay the bills?
So moved.
Yeah.
Second?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I'd like to make a comment.
go ahead.
I've seen a lot of work being done in flood mitigation in the last week and a half or so. And they are doing a tremendous job. If we get some tremendous rainfall like we did back in the 2nd and 3rd of July, nothing's gonna hold that back. Nothing is going to prevent the damage. But for storms that are within reason, I feel very confident that the work that they did on Hesbrook is going to
Good.
mitigate a lot of what we've seen. And they've done some work where the confluence is up higher, and I think that that's going to slow the water down and cause less of that rubble to come down.
That's up the same.
That's up the same brook, yeah,
Up toward the school,
up toward, yeah.
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 But there is so much up there that, but by slowing it down, it won't come down
That's fast.
that fast to where it would be a detriment in a storm. They've left an access point so that they can, where the water is going to be going slower, that they can remove a lot of that rubble. And looking at the Calicoon Creek, it's amazing what they're doing. They're not even close to finishing that first step by Hewson's Park there.
Yeah.
But they are installing mini dams to slow that water down. And it's really beginning to look very, very good. Like Ed said, they've hauled a lot of rubble out of there. The town was running tag team with 3 trucks today. One would load up, the other one would be in the brook loading up, and they just keep rotating them.
Jimmy had 2 trucks there as well today, because
Yeah.
I was down there.
And they took a tremendous amount of rubble out of there, and I think,
Where they get started down below.
yeah,
Mhm.
down by
There's
Chalice's,
a
yeah.
lot of stuff there.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. But if they can manage to put some mini dams in to slow that water down, I think, I mean, Brian Brussman knows the technology of what's going in down there, but to me, it looks very, very promising.
He's another busy guy.
Pardon?
Brian is another busy guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Very.
Actually, I was remiss before. We talked about this, what came from the governor's office. I probably sounded a little nonchalant about it, because that wouldn't have happened without
Yep.
Senator Bonasek,
And Aileen.
Aileen Gunther. I mean, you don't want to get Aileen on your case.
Yeah.
She really worked hard, contacted the
Yes, she
governor. I understand she called every day.
Yeah.
Maybe they just finally
No,
said, get this
she
woman.
worked very hard.
But God bless her, right?
Yeah,
She
she worked
she
very
really,
hard.
you know, she really worked for her constituents.
Yep.
And Chris Gibson did a lot of letter writing to the governor. Schumer did. I mean, our representatives really, I think, did a pretty good job.
Yep.
But especially Aileen and
Yeah, she
and
did.
Bonasek. They
No
really-
question about it. No
So
question.
our thanks go out to them. I got 2 thank you letters out to them today, because they really deserve it, but it's really, it's not much considering what they've given us.
As hungry as every entity is to get some of that money, I certainly hope that this town gets their fair share of that money.
I'll echo that.
It would be kind of nice if we could sign
Anybody,
a
any other
thank you
comment?
note and have each board member sign it.
we sent one on behalf of the board.
Oh, behalf of the
board.
Okay, very good. That's good, because it really was just amazing to see how, and even walking up the creeks and everything else, I think
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
Yeah, she
fantastic.
walked Creek, she met with Pete,
Yep.
she really went over and above
No
what she
question.
could get for us.
Yep.
Aileen stopped at my house the other day and said, "Show me where this brook is, where all that problem was." And that was amazing. She dragged 3 other people through.
Yeah, she got in there and got her boots dirty.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
did.
we
Yeah,
went
she
back
did.
there and looked at where the berm went out and everything, and it was,
Yeah, it was the governor's office people that she dragged around.
that's correct,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good for her.
What was that fellow's name, Tom Skag?
Scaglione.
Yeah,
Scaglione?
Scotland, yeah. That's.
All right, anyway, any more comments? And we've already moved to pay the bills, and you
Yes, we
guys,
Mhm.
it's time for public comment. Can we, anybody have any comment?
I have a question. There have been some newspaper articles recently regarding residency of one of the town board members. And I understand that it can be a very complex and complicated situation, understanding the town law and so on and so forth. And I know that the town law manual says that a vacancy is created when a town board member changes their residence. But then there apparently are questions of residency and domicile and so on and so forth. I was wondering if the board could have the town attorney who's present give a quick but clear, concise explanation of how it is possible for a town board member who is substantially moved can still serve on the board without resigning. Or alternatively, the town board member could offer his explanation for the record.
Yeah, the situation you referred to, and Steve, don't make believe that you got all your information from the newspaper.
No, I'm
Because
not
you guys have,
I'm not
you've
taking
been
it-
parlaying,
I
are
want to
you kidding
explain
me?
to you that I'm not taking this all from the
Yeah,
newspaper.
I know what's going on. Mr. Roder is a man, I don't- if you're afraid to say his name, it's
No, I
Harold
know.
Roder, it's right here. And he has been a resident of the town his whole life.
I understand.
And he did sell his house, and he's buying a house in Pennsylvania. Right now, he's living with his son. His driver's license has been changed, and he's done nothing wrong. And if you were here sitting in that seat, it would be this, you would be afforded the same latitude that he would. Now, I venture to say, I'm looking at you, Chuck, now, because I personally believe that if Harold Roder was an anti-driller, you guys wouldn't be here. So, he's not doing anything wrong, and I couldn't, and this board couldn't do anything. Anyway, he's doing what he has a right to do. So, you guys are making, I think, as much ado over nothing. But that's,
I do
and I
understand.
just want to put it on the table, that
I
you guys,
understand.
you're not getting, you are giving the information to the press, you're not getting it from the press. So let's get that on the table, right?
And I do
And if you have something to say, come on, say it. I mean, it's,
I do understand that what Harold is doing is legal. I just question whether it's honorable and sportsmanlike. It seems to me that under the circumstances, knowing that you're no longer going to be a resident of the town, that the honorable thing, in my opinion, would have been to resign, to give the entire township a fair chance. You know that there's somebody in the room here who garnered exactly the same number of votes as a sitting council person. Why not simply do the sportsmanlike thing and resign and have the board extend the courtesy to John Murphy and say, John, you legitimately earned a seat on the board in the last election. Are you interested in serving? And if he declined to serve, fine. And give the people who voted for John an opportunity to vote in this election for a new town board member. This is just an opinion. I know that what you're doing is legal, but it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. That's all. That's an
You know,
opinion.
I'd like to answer that question if I can. I mean, if Harold wants to say something.
That's all right, go ahead.
I personally don't even think this is political business, it's not town board business, but I had lunch yesterday with Harold. And the reason he's doing this is he loves his town. He served this town well for, I don't know how many years?
17.
There's no question of
17,
that.
well, wait a minute, let me finish, all right? I didn't interrupt you.
Oh,
For 17 years, he served this town. He's lived here his entire life. He owns property in this town, probably more than most of us sitting here. Pays more taxes in this town. And he truly loves it and has given a lot. He wants to, what he's doing is because he loves his town. That's why. It'd be easy to just leave. So I don't know if that answers to your. I know he loves his town, and he's always done what he thought was right. It's just too bad for you guys that he's not an anti-driller and he's not, a fanatic to your line of thinking. That's the only difference. And, I think the whole thing is much ado over nothing and ridiculous.
There are several circumstances that you may or may not be aware of.
probably not aware of.
Okay. When my wife and I decided, after 42 years of living in a home and banging around in it with 4 bedrooms and 2 baths or 3 baths or 3.5 or whatever it is, a large house, 2 people who have now reached the age of 74, it's got too much. It's just too much. We were very, very, very fortunate to have neighbors who I trust and I have come to love all over these years since they bought their farm, I think in '76, that their children wanted to take over. They took over my son's house last year, which is the house that I grew up in. And they have now taken, his daughter wanted our house if we wanted to sell it. And he wanted the land and the barns. If the daughter bought it, he would think of doing that. You'd have to look at the logistics of how it lays out in order to understand why that's very important to the farmer, because in order to get to everything on the left side of Knack Hill Road from our property up belonged to us. Virtually, somebody could have bought that house and just cut David off from his farm. He would have to go up and go all the way around. But anyhow, to make a long story short, part of the agreement was we were given time to get out. It was time to downsize. And let me tell you, it was a tough decision. There was a lot of tears shed over this. You don't live and love and cut every piece of grass on lawn for 40 some odd years and not know every inch of that ground. So it was a tough decision. But when we saw what the young neighbor boy, Brandon, I'll tell you, Brandon Peters, he's a wonderful kid. What he has done with the house and the property that used to belong to my parents was just a joy to my heart. This is a young man who would come over to me and say, Mr. Roders, he's running a farm trying to take care of his land, and he comes over to me and he says, Mr. Roders, is there anything I can do to help you? You can't buy that today. So that business of having a feeling inside of, gosh, are we doing the right thing here? I hate to leave this and I'm gonna cry and all things. The joy of seeing what was happening with it is supplanting the loss of that. Now, the biggest thing is, and of course, your young son, Corey, they bought that house, and you should have seen, when you get to be a certain age, there's just things you just can't take care of anymore. It takes too long to do it, you're too old, and it just doesn't work. And you get behind. Trees grow, bushes grow, things get left undone. And this young man came into that house, and it was like a whirlwind. Zoom, 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 zoom. It was amazing that he's done. So now my spirits are lifted even more that these kids have it. But the reason, Steve, wasn't to put it to the Democrat Party. That's not what this is all about. If I was of mind to want to put it to an opposing party and do this, I would resign on the 21st of this month and say, go stick it. But that's not what I did. I have to get out of the properties. It took me months. They gave me time to leave the house.
we were able to get the upstairs done with the movers that we had and cleaning for days and, well, not just getting the stuff out. After 42 years, you can't imagine what you find in your house. And then I have been working downstairs, and Al was able to come over several times, more than several, and help me carry out stuff that I haven't seen in 20 years, and you wonder why I even have it. Now we've gotten to the point where I have a barn that's 4 stories tall. 3 of them are packed with stuff since my parents moved there in 1952. There's a 2-car garage, an old one with an upstairs. You can hardly get in the door. There's another outbuilding that's got all kinds of stuff in it. And it's up to me to get it out before the snow flies. Now, the reason I changed to my son's home so I could lay my head down and not have to run all the way back over to the house, which, by the way, I only own 1/6 of it anyhow, but that's neither here or there. It's so much smaller, we have to do renovations and stuff, and where you put all of this stuff? It's like living out of boxes. It's been unbelievable. So it's a time issue, that's all. I fully intend that soon as I can get that issue settled, that will be the time to resign. That's why I did what I did. I also own that 85 acres, and we were thinking about this not too long ago. I'm 74, the good Lord gives you another 10 years. Life sometimes takes in different paths, and you kind of need someone around to help a little bit. So I still got that 85 acres, and I would fully intend to come back here if the Lord gives us that time, and we are in need to have help. So that's where it is, folks. I didn't do it to you to be vindictive or anything like that, period. That's
And I would just like to say that addressing what you were saying, that I can't say I wouldn't do things any different way than Harold is doing it, but we're just asking the questions. I think that the letter to the editor that we wrote, we were asking the questions because when you run into relatives of Harold's at the convenience store and you say, did Harold move? And they say, is Harold moving? And they say, no, he
I can't
moved.
remember when there was a guy
So
running
we
for
were
the town
just-
board that was
Ed,
living in
listen, I didn't
Pennsylvania with a
interrupt you.
Pennsylvania plate, and
Ed.
he told me that if he wins, he's gonna move here, and that was part of your party.
Ed, I didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry, but that is the thing I find the most galling about this board is the arrogance. We are the people of the town. We have a voice. We can ask questions
Yeah, sure.
anytime we want, and we should be listened to, you know? And I'm just saying that, you know, we were asking the questions.
One of the reasons that it was impossible for me to get into my son's home right away is because there was no room. There were 2 college boys waiting to go off to college. Now that they're there. When I get late at night, I can just ride up there and stay there. So that's what that's all about. I can understand where you're coming from there.
Any other comments?
I'm speaking just for myself. I actually resent that you would say that this is about gas drilling. I completely resent that. It's not, gas drilling isn't about yes or no, it's about safety and quality of life. So I hope you remember that. And I think the real point, really quickly, is that the intent to move is there. And the idea of serving out your term is already, we know you're not.
Well,
So that's why,
Go ahead.
just because of the intent, I don't understand holding on to it. Just rightfully so. My brother owns property here. He moved to Missouri. I mean, if he came out and said, oh, I'm gonna run for office, I've lived here all my life, you know, 50 years out of 56, I should hold an office. I mean, it's just the inevitability that you are leaving, that we thought it shouldn't be prolonged, especially at election time.
I don't know, it's a simple round.
No sense going any further.
Anybody else?
The intent, by the way, is
that land is available for me to come back. And I intend to do so if I have to. There you are. That answers the question.
Okay. Anything else?
We have nothing else. You guys, somebody make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.